Welcome to the Enterprise Excellence Podcast, where our purpose is to help create a better future. Learn from our world's experts how to improve your organisation sustainably. Learn how to achieve and sustain an excellence journey for yourself, others, and the planet.
And I'm your host, Brad Jevons, coming to you from Brisbane, Australia. We are proudly brought to you in association with SA Partners, a world-leading business transformation consultancy. SA Partners are a truly purposeful company focused on helping organisations achieve sustainable improvement for themselves, others, and the planet.
Hi listeners, we're so lucky to get Michael Bremer back on the show today to talk about his new book that he's writing right now on leadership to create a culture of continuous improvement. Michael on the show recaps on the topic of why to conduct a Gemba Walk, which then flows into the first chapter of his new book that you'll learn about in the show. There's a special call out here. There's an opportunity for you, the listener, to collaborate with Michael and I to explore the chapters of this new book as it's being written and test some of the practical elements. This will ultimately allow us all to learn and play a part in this new book, which is exciting. To get involved, go to our website, enterpriseexcellencepodcast.com/contact and register your interest. You could also just simply reach out to me on LinkedIn and let us know you're interested. Let's get to the show. Welcome to episode 138 of the Enterprise Excellence Podcast. It is such a pleasure to have Mr. Michael Bremer back on the show with us today. Michael is the author of the award-winning book, How to Do a Gemba Walk, a leader's guide. Michael is the group moderator at Dominican University and vice president of the AME Excellence Awards. Today we are going to discuss leadership in leading continuous improvement, the topic of the new book Michael is working on. As leaders, how do we lead a team to create a culture of continuous improvement? Let's get into the episode. Michael, thanks so much for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me again, Brad. I enjoyed it when we did this the last time, and this I think will be interesting to talk to today.
Yeah, same. Michael's one of my favorite shows, and I've been so keen to this conversation.
I'll bet you say that to all the girls.
Oh, mate, I'll tell you, this is the biggest blessing I get out of running this podcast. So it's really good. Thank you, mate, for coming on. Michael, before we go into your new book and the new concept, do you mind if we just go back for a second? You wrote your initial book on leadership Gemba. Why is spending time at the front line so important for leadership?
Well, several reasons. I think there's three opportunities for leaders that will go in and take the time to do this. First of all, and there's nothing new about this idea, but they get the opportunity to walk in somebody else's shoes. And you get that opportunity by going into the workplace. And it doesn't matter if it's the classic value adding where work gets done, which in a manufacturing operation would be, of course, where the manufacturing is taking place. But it could also be the design engineering group. If I'm in a software company, it could be where people are doing their code, or I could be going into these other areas that are supporting those activities for doing this. And so the opportunity to get in and interact with people that are doing work within the organization and just understanding what their thoughts are, how it is they're dealing with it, what some of their experiences are doing this. So that's number one. I think the second opportunity when you go in and you do this is very, very difficult. I get an opportunity to see how our processes, policies, and procedures actually impact the work that it is that people are doing. And that happens through learning how to ask good questions, doing more listening as the walker than talking. And I can observe the way that people are doing work, certainly in the questions that it is that I can asking them. One of the things I talked about in the book is when you do a walk, it's very unlikely that you're going to see a problem happening. Sometimes it is, but usually stuff is just sort of poking along. But if you stop and you ask questions, well, is this what normally happens? Or when an exception happens, what is it that takes place? And how do you deal with that exception? And can you show me? You get to start to see, well, what are the processes within an organization, the procedures and the policies? How is that really impacting? And more often, most of those things are probably okay, but there's elements of it that actually inhibit the way that work is being done. And so the second thing is you've got an opportunity to learn. And the third thing fits with what we'll be talking about with leadership, but I now have an opportunity as a walker to change my perspective. I've got an opportunity to see what is it that's really happening I can begin to let go of my assumptions and beliefs, which is harder than it sounds, because walkers tend to go out and see things that reinforce what it is they believe, what it is that they assume to be true. But if you're patient with this and you're doing more listening and not a lot of talking, you got an opportunity to get a better understanding of what the actual reality of what's happening within your organization, within your team, the way your team, functions with other people they need to play with. I've got an opportunity to see, do we really have an open environment? Or do we really have quiet compliance with the way that people are doing their work here as you probe and you ask questions to get some dialogue? And I can do some things after I get some learning there to actively encourage creating this learning culture where we are encouraging people to begin experimenting and learning. So as I open up that dialogue, trust is almost always an issue in organizations. There's an opportunity then to begin to impact that trust. So I think three things: just walking in somebody else's shoes, that idea of learning how our processes and procedures are working. And then the third thing is really shifting my perspective and building trust with the people that are within the organization.
Yeah, it's huge, isn't it? Like those topics you just covered, there's not much more important than that at the moment. And I love the comment too, Michael, where it's about ultimately it helps you alter your perspective. Like I know myself, I've experienced that so much when I've done this throughout my career. And I tell you, some of the perspective changes were astronomical. And it filled me with fear on one hand, considering the bias I had.
Yeah.
But on the other, it just astounded me with how wrong I was and the path we ended up taking with the people. Yeah.
Well, it's just amazing. I mean, to me also, just as you go through and you get these explosions, I felt I've always had a pretty decent intellectual understanding of this stuff, but I didn't always have a good emotional connection to these things or understanding what was going on with other people's emotions. I did not, when I was younger, I did not always appreciate that. As a matter of fact, I didn't even care about it. And what I've learned as I was doing this is what an important element that is. And of course, today everybody talks about EQ and all of this stuff, but when I was a leader leading teams, we had Maslow and we had the guy with EM, whose name escapes me now, but
Carl Jung.
Yeah.
Jung
so there are a couple of people out there, but there wasn't anything like the literature that's out there today to help us, I think, see the world more holistically.
Yeah, well, that's why I loved when I guess I initially saw your LinkedIn post that was talking about a new book cover, and that's what triggered me. Oh, Michael's writing a book on leadership, and to me, it was such a wonderful, logical next step because the way you wrote Leadership Gemba was so good too. The quality of how you wrote it was so good. And I think, now you're writing a book about, how do we actually lead and a team, an organization to create a culture of continuous improvement. But mate, from your view, what led you to start to draft this book up on focused really on then purely leadership?
Can I, let me share the cover of that and then I'll answer your question here. If that's
yeah, Michael. And if you don't mind for our podcast listeners, we'll describe it a bit too. So on YouTube, you'll be able to see it. And
okay. So the first one that I had here is the Gemba Walk book. And I wrote that because when we wrote it, everybody said, go see and ask a bunch of questions and show respect, but there wasn't anything that anybody told anybody how to do it. And so in writing that, for those that are listening to the podcast, if you do go to LinkedIn SlideShare and you do my last name and the words Gemba Walk, there's a free deck that's there on SlideShare that summarizes what's in the book. The other thing, though, that I've been working on is this idea of learning to see the invisible. And I was sharing with Brad that I was experimenting with ChatGPT in a sub-program called DAL-E, where I could work with some designs. So I designed a new book cover that I like. I don't know what the publisher is going to think about this. But the idea here is, what is it as a leader? Because I found this over the years, that idea of that I've got these assumptions and beliefs. And so how can I pierce those assumptions in beliefs? And what I've seen over the years, this doesn't work always, but if people can begin to see things tomorrow that they did not see yesterday, that then could help them to change the way that it is that they lead. And so is telling Brad when we were chatting before we started, I didn't want to write a traditional leadership book. And there's like, you do a Google search in this, there's like almost 1 billion things on leadership, and hundreds of thousands, I think, of leadership books. But I wanted to do something that I thought was like the Gemba Walk book. And what are some practical steps that anybody could take if they want to learn to lead more effectively in their organization? And I talk about four things in this book. It starts with finding ways to change my perspective. And so what are some experiments that I can personally run to change the way that I look at the world? Doing a Gemba Walk. I mean, that's one thing that it is that I could do to get a deeper understanding, to change the way I see. You do a process map. I mean, you see, it's not like you didn't know those problems existed, but when you see them on a map, you know, well, maybe that's uglier than I thought. And so that changes my perspective. I get a deeper understanding of things that are going on with my team, with my organization. The second step is, as somebody is trying to change their perspective, and there's a fair amount of reflection that needs to take place, and there's some tools that we could use to do that. The second thing that I think people could do if they really want to move themselves forward is, so many people today are talking about clarity of purpose and really specifically defining what the purpose is. And our purpose is usually not totally undefined, but it isn't crisp. And it's not usually motivating because, I mean, you go into most organizations that are doing a lean thing and there's a huddle board. If I'm in a manufacturing company at the end of the line, and the statistics show that the daily things that it is that we did I make them all on time? Did I have the right quality? Were there any issues that came up? Well, that's fine for the moment, but that's not really the purpose of why it is that I'm doing that. That isn't inspiring me to move to the next level. At Autoleave, a company in one of the states in the U.S. called Utah, their purpose with their continuous improvement practice, and the reason, one of the things they use for helping to motivate their employees is to keep high-paying jobs in the state of Utah. And if you're not familiar with that, in the United States, Utah is like in the middle of nowhere. Yet they're supplying the automotive industry. And so to keep high-paying jobs in the state of Utah, that sort of a purpose begins to lend itself, I believe, to something that's more noble. So getting clear with the purpose, or even if I go a sub-level in the lean world, and so I'm doing leader standard work, or I've got this whiteboard that we're using with performance statistics. Well, what's the purpose of leader standard work? So when I do a lot of volunteer stuff for the Association of Manufacturing Excellence. When I go and I'm doing an assessment on improvement effectiveness, a question I will always ask is, Brad, you tell me you're doing leader standard work. Well, tell me what you're doing differently this year than you were doing last year as a result of your leader standard work. What's the purpose of leader standard work for you? And so we can take this idea of purpose at multiple levels. The organization overall, my department, a function, my team, myself. I mean, what is my purpose as a leader? What purpose am I trying to fulfill with people that it is that I'm leading? And that can really help me to focus on changes it is. So I go back to reflection. Oh, reflection, how well is this working? What is it that I'm doing? The next element that we'll focus on in the book then is, I'm not looking to elevate myself, but I'm looking to uplift the people that are around me, the people that are on my team, the people that it is that we need to play with in the organization. Years ago, there was a book written, I forget their names, but it's called Managing the White Space. And they talked about how so often within organizations, I got one functional group and the metrics are fine. I go to the next functional group and their metrics are fine. But if I looked at how these two people are playing with one another, it's not always a thing of elegance or a thing of beauty. But the way the organization is managing the performance is by functional groups. And so what is it that we could be doing where we're uplifting not only my team, but the people that it is we need to play with? And I'm building up. And when we talked about the importance of emotions, Bob Chapman tells a story, the CEO of Barry Waymiller, that he involves some people improvement. He's getting a debrief with them, and he asks them, well, what did you get out of spending, doing this improvement stuff? And the one guy makes this response, well, when I go home now, I can talk to my wife at night. And so this whole idea of how we can build people's self-esteem, build their critical thinking skills, build their capability to become a better, not only a better employee, but a better person in life. I mean, it's phenomenal. And when I started doing this sort of work years ago, I did not appreciate that But in organizations that do this well and leaders that do this well, I've seen again and again, they are developing themselves as a better person and the people around them as a better person. And that is, it's like intoxicating.
Yeah.
Is so cool. And then how do we hold all of this stuff together? I was really wrestling with, well, if we do these three things, and how can I hold myself accountable? What is it that's going on? What can I do to keep this visible for me? And I think what we need to do is we need to make these things publicly. I need to find ways to visually and publicly hold myself accountable for what it is that I'm doing. I don't have it near me right now, but one of the things I personally do is I'm retired, so I'm not worried about working anymore or doing any of that sort of stuff, at least not in the real world. But I want to learn how to play the piano. I had a couple of health issues a couple of years ago. I was a lifetime runner, and so I'm trying to get running again. And then, of course, I need to do my 10,000, 11,000 steps every day. So what's my visual feedback for me? Well, I've got a paper calendar that hangs on a wall. And if I get my 10,000 steps, I get a check mark. If I practice my piano, I put a capital P on that calendar. If I did my run, because I do a walk every day, but if I did my run, then I get a capital R. And so simple ways that this is for me, for some of my personal goals, but what are some simple things? It does not need to be sophisticated, things that work, that help move us toward our purpose. My purpose with the piano is I want to be able to continue to impress my wife of 44 years with learning a new skill, and she loves it when I'm sitting there practicing with the piano. And so that's kind of cool. And the other stuff is simply for health. As I'm getting older, to continue to stay healthy. So that would fit with my purpose of why it is that I'm doing this. And so in my mind, if people could do those four things, where we're taking time to change our perspectives through reflection and through using a few easy to practice tools, because it takes practice to get good at doing this. I use purpose to really help us figure out more what it is we should be accomplishing and what is really a real win for us, a meaningful win. I'm uplifting the people that are around me, which is what every leader should be doing. And then finding ways to hold us accountable, holding myself accountable for what it is I'm trying to accomplish. And so, I'm trying to do this new book. I think it's a little different than the traditional leadership books. And in each of those things, I've got what are some techniques or actions that people could try to experiment with each of those four, let's call them foundations.
Hi listeners, we're so lucky to get Michael Bremer back on the show today to talk about his new book that he's writing right now on leadership to create a culture of continuous improvement. Michael on the show recaps on the topic of why to conduct a Gemba Walk, which then flows into the first chapter of his new book that you'll learn about in the show. There's a special call out here. There's an opportunity for you, the listener, to collaborate with Michael and I to explore the chapters of this new book as it's being written and test some of the practical elements. This will ultimately allow us all to learn and play a part in this new book, which is exciting. To get involved, go to our website, enterpriseexcellencepodcast.com/contact and register your interest. You could also just simply reach out to me on LinkedIn and let us know you're interested. Let's get to the show. Yeah, well, Michael, I can truly see with these foundations you're writing about that it's going to lead to dramatic uplift. Like you just need to tick those boxes on those four, and it's like, wow, that's huge. And I can see that you've also thought about it in sort of a PDCA type of way too, because it's like the number 4, which is how do I check it? How do I make sure I keep on it? How do I then enable myself to check and then act and adapt off of what's going on, which often gets missed, doesn't it too, the number 4. I also love
you think you got these other 3 things, but at least for me, if I don't have something that's on there, it's just so easy to let it go, to let it slide.
Yeah, drive back into old habits.
Yeah, it helps.
Yeah, I love the uplift people too, and that critical point where you spoke about uplift the people I need to play with. Your internal customers, your internal suppliers, and uplift everyone around you, because ultimately you're going to get greater outcomes, greater culture, but also greater flow of whatever service or product you're doing through that way. It's a very simple way to get value stream thinking going, isn't it?
Well, it is. And it's funny, early on when I was looking, as I was just starting, people were starting to do more with the visual management. And what I noticed is that sometimes where people had things that I would say were a little more forward thinking and factual. So the first thing with the visuals is you got to get people to agree to the facts, because my perception of facts may or may not have agreement, with those people I need to play with. But once they did that, what I noticed over the years is that visual all by itself caused the departments to play better together.
Yeah.
And there was less bickering and less, well, you should be doing this or you should be doing that. People taking responsibility and really working to make the whole better rather than just the part. And it is, it's amazingly powerful, and it does not need to be complicated.
Yeah. And I can also see, Michael, how with number one, it links bolt straight back into how to do a Gemba Walk too, your original book, and it just all connects through. So it's like you can nearly read your initial book, come in and read the first chapter of this book, connect the two together, and then go deeper into clarity of purpose and how you use that to really create that focus and that greater motivation and that greater reason for being with everything that's going on. Uplift people around me and the people I play with, and then make it visual. It's simple, but I think the thing I know that what you'll write with your book is you'll make it highly practical. That makes it easy for people to get their hands on and make work.
That's the goal. That is the goal. You want to talk about getting some volunteers to help with this?
Yeah, well, I've got a little story I'd like to tell with that, Michael, if I can.
Right.
Everyone,
Sure.
when I first met Michael, we were at a restaurant in Wynnum in Brisbane, and Michael, I think you'd already written how to do a Gemba Walk, but you were still questioning and inquiring and, quizzing me on ideas and concepts, and also with Kevin Bennett, who was with us. And you were just constantly looking to learn and think, how can I do it better? And then we ran a training event at the site I was with at the time. And again, it was constant PDCA. Like, I can see that your mind works in PDCA. And I understand, Michael, that you're looking to do that with this book now. You want to connect and have conversations with some people to explore these concepts and learn yourself and improve that. But do you mind explaining to listeners what you're looking for and how they could help and how they'll gain value too? I'm sure, like I did. Yeah.
So this is a recent idea, but what I was thinking is that the overview chapter itself is maybe 14 pages. It sort of gives an overview of what I just explained here, talking to Brad. And so I'd suggest that somebody read that, and then if they think this concept is interesting, I've talked about these things as 4 foundations, and each of those foundations, there's a variety of ways that we could practice doing those. And so I've got 8, 10 ways that somebody could practice. It's not linear. I might want to use, 1, 3, 5, and 6 for my world. But the idea, what I was thinking is, if there's an interest, I would be willing to share the overview chapter. And then maybe we would do 2-hour sessions over an 8-week period, and we do 4 of them. And each of those sessions, I would review some of the techniques that somebody could use to practice changing my perspective. And in week 2, we would do saying, well, what are some things that I could practice to get more clarity of purpose, to refine what it is we're doing, to what would be, if we were doing this every other week, then what would be week 6? We would look at what could we be doing to uplift the people that are around us, and then finally, how could we visually hold ourselves accountable for whatever it is we've decided we wanted to be accomplishing. And the reason I like to do that is to road test this, because I, of course, think it's practical. There's great stories. People have shared phenomenal experiences with me, and the things that I'm talking to are things that I've personally done, where I've changed the way that I've led and managed, or I've seen others change the way that it is. So I'm trying to draw on some of the most effective leaders that I've been able to observe over the 40 years that it is that I've been doing this. And how did those people get to where they were when they were in this space where I would look at them as a highly effective leader in today's world? And these 4 foundations are what I came up with. And so if somebody that's listening to this would, I think we could schedule something. We could have a couple companies participate. Zoom is great. I'm willing to just I'll devote 2 hours. And we go over an 8-week period, every 2 weeks going through one of these foundations. And your obligation, your commitment, if we were doing this, would be, of course, to experiment with the techniques that get suggested, and then give me some feedback. But does this make any sense? Are we really getting some good out of this? Or, as Brad was talking about, what could we do to refine this and have this thing make more sense? The tools and techniques are things, most of these, I mean, it's just like in the world of lean. 70% of lean is traditional industrial engineering tools. It is not new. There's very little in lean that nobody thought of ever. I mean, Ford was trying to do flow, at the turn of the 20th century.
Yeah.
Some of that stuff got lost along the way, but most of this stuff is not new. And I don't have anything in this book that is new. But what is new is the way that people use these tools and how it is that we're going about it. And so taking some of these things that I suspect most of you will be familiar with, but trying to use them in a slightly different way, where I'm focused on what can I do to become a better leader for the people that it is that I'm working with, for the people that it is that I'm trying to collaborate with inside my organization. I think there is a different twist here. And so if there is some interest in that, you can reach out and connect with me, and we'll set something up and we'll try it.
Well, I think, Michael, I'd like to say that I'd like to be your first participant if you're happy. I'd love to sit into that group and be part of that. And we'll see what group builds up from there. So, Michael, how can people reach out to you on this, or just reach out to connect and get help on other factors too?
Well, one is they can go through you and ask for my email address. But the easy way is it's Michael. I just created a really simple website. And so it's Michael at Michael Bremer, BREMER.net. So, and if you do a Google search for Michael Bremer, I usually on the first or second page.
Yeah.
I also had a Michael Bremer at mac@mac.com address that people can use. But go to any of those, or connect with me through LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. And so come to LinkedIn and just send me a message letting me know that you're interested in doing this. And that'd be another way we could connect.
Yeah, that'd be great. So everyone, you can connect in with Michael and put forward your interest, or connect in with me through my LinkedIn or through the Enterprise Excellence Podcast website. Just contact us and let me know, and we'll coordinate this. What an amazing opportunity. So Michael, thank you so much, mate. This is truly going to help us create a better future, and I appreciate the time today, but I also appreciate this opportunity to collaborate going forward for a few weeks.
Yeah, I think it could be fun.
Yeah. So, Michael, what are you looking at next now, mate? What's this next part you're looking for coming up? What are you focused on?
Well, I said that I do a lot of volunteer stuff for the Association of Manufacturing Excellence. I've been involved with them since the early 90s and have learned so much, gained so much. One thing I want to help AME do, when we had our annual conference last year in Dallas, we had the most diversified group of people that I've ever seen in attendance that day. There were maybe, 1,200 people that showed up at the conference. And there were multicolored people that were there. There were old people, but most importantly, there were a lot of young people, especially in that 35 to 45 year age bracket. And the thing that I realized as I was looking at the audience, and I want to help AME, I'm working with Kim Humphreys, the CEO at AME, to do this, is I got involved with AME when I was in that age bracket of 35 to 45. And for the next, I hate to say how long, but for me, 30 years, I've been involved with that organization, and I've made this great network of people. I never ever looked to sell a lot of our consulting work from that, but I did get a lot of referrals from that network when I was running the consulting business. But I formed a network of people that I could learn from, people that I could trust, and I was able to learn. And what I see now is there's a whole bunch of guys that are my age that are all moving toward whatever comes next. And to help develop some of this group now where they can get 20 to 30 years out of being involved in this organization and help AME itself, to both continue to share, learn, and grow. but the personal benefit that it is they can get out of it. So working with Kim, I think, to help make that happen through several things that it is that we're doing.
Yeah, it's neat. And I think to everyone, it'd be something to watch out for. You know, the AME, well, in many places all over the world, helps so much. So there's a lot to gain there. Potentially, Michael, there's a show for us to do in the future just on the AME and share knowledge and insights on the AME. That could be a good one. Well,
we could do that. We could even bring Kim and have both of us participate in that.
Yeah, I think that's a definite show. And I also too want to delve deeper on specific topics on how to do a Gemba Walk. So we'll do that one day down the track too. Michael,
Sure.
Thank you again, mate. Thanks for your time. Thanks for sharing your knowledge. And thanks for what you have done and continue to do, particularly with this leadership book coming up. I think there's a real opportunity for anyone to learn in the future on that, but particularly some people that want to get involved in this connection and work together that we do. Thanks so much, Michael.
Thank you. It's great.
Appreciate it. Bye for now.
Take care.
As mentioned at the start of the show, there's an opportunity for you, the listener, to collaborate with Michael and I to explore the chapters of his new book and test some of the practical elements. This will help us all learn and play a part in this exciting book. To get involved, go to our website, enterpriseexcellencepodcast.com/contact and register your interest. You can also simply reach out on LinkedIn. There were 2 key takeaways for me from this episode. Firstly, Michael's comment, "See tomorrow what you did not see today." Michael in his book, How to Do a Gemba Walk, helps us practically learn how to break bias and see tomorrow what we did not see today. Ultimately learn. In his new book, he is exploring more ways to do this. I love this concept. It is at the heart of continuous learning, which is at the heart of continuous improvement and creating a culture of continuous improvement. The second key takeaway for me was a discussion on uplifting people around me and the people we play with, our suppliers, teams who supply into our team, and also those people we supply the next team in our process. This leadership attitude and behaviour will ultimately drive constant learning and development, as well as value stream thinking, collaboration, and improvement of flow of value and innovation. What a powerful concept and leadership way of thinking to create a collaborative, improving culture, breaking down silos and getting everyone working together. Thanks again for your time and knowledge, Michael. Thanks for helping us create a better future. Bye for now.